my next guest is none other than Peter Schiff. On behalf of our community, Follow the Money, thanks for joining me, Peter.
All right. Well, thanks for the ride.
We're gonna be productive, and we're gonna take you to a store so you can get something.
Yes, you guys offered me a lift, and so I accepted, and we're doing an interview at the same time.
We saw Peter flagging a taxi. We're like, whoa, Peter, we got you. No, I'm just kidding. What do you got going on? Because I was looking at what you're doing these days, and it seems like you moved one business into Canada, or they bought out a business. Or?
No, well, I got into Canada years ago. I partnered up with some guys. We started a company called Euro Pacific Canada, which is a broker dealer up here, and later expanded, merged with Dundee, and then changed the name. And I'm now kind of a minority investor in that company, Echelon Wealth Partners.
That's right, yeah.
So we still have a small presence here, but what I'm doing more recently is my asset management company, Euro Pacific Asset Management, which is now based in Puerto Rico, which is where I live. We have been pending with IROC for more than a year to become a registered advisor here in Canada. And this has taken forever. I'm surprised that we're not already approved. It seems that the regulations on this side of the border are even worse than they are down with the SEC. But hopefully, any day now, I will be legit here in Canada, and I will, for the first time, be able to accept Canadian customers directly from my U.S. asset management firm. We'll be accepting managed accounts, and more importantly, all of my mutual funds will then become available to Canadian citizens on any platform here in Canada. And, a lot of people have wanted to buy my gold fund. I mean, we're here at the Gold Conference. It's managed by Adrian Day. Adrian is one of the speakers here as well. We've got a great 5 stars by Morningstar on my mutual fund. I was the #1 mutual fund in the gold sector for 5 years. The first 5 years I had the fund, ending in December 2018. I even got a little plaque on my desk. Although I can't really take credit because Adrian did all the stock picking, but I was smart enough to hire Adrian, so I get a little bit of the props there. But, Canadians have wanted to invest and they haven't been able to. And so this year at some point, all of my funds, not just my gold fund, will be available anywhere you buy mutual funds up here in Canada. And of course, people will also be able to open up accounts directly with me down in Puerto Rico. And I'll be able to manage money for Canadian clients. So I'm looking forward to that.
Thanks for that update. Todd, where am I driving to?
Straight until West Georgia Street, make a left.
Okay, and approximately how far is that?
4 or 5 streets.
Yeah.
Okay, and then make a left.
It could be worse. It could be snowing instead of raining.
Yeah.
You can tell by my overcoat, I'm no longer in Puerto Rico.
All right, Todd, you tell me where to go because I'm going to get distracted.
I just got caught at the red light.
Peter.
Yeah.
What's the #1 thing you would want people to remember about your father, Irwin?
Oh, God. I mean, first of all, a lot of people might not even know about my dad. So first thing you have to do is, kind of get familiar with the story, Irwin Schiff. There's a lot of stuff written about him on the internet. I mean, some of it bad, some of it good. It depends on your perspective. But he really was a very patriotic guy, a real American who put his country and his principles above himself, above his family, above his personal life. And so, a lot of people don't get that or understand that. Mm-hmm. But you can, go. He has a website that I still maintain for him called paynoincometax.com. And there's a lot of content on there. In fact, I suggested people listen to some of the archives of his radio show that he used to do, a shortwave radio show once a week. In fact, if you listen to him, you'll really understand where I'm coming from and how I got to, the place that I am. You'll see a lot of me and my dad.
Yep.
You can ignore the stuff about, not paying income taxes and things like that. I mean, I think my dad, I think technically he was right about his reading of the law and the Constitution. But I mean, the point of it is just to listen to his insights on economics and government and the Constitution and things like that. And you can, read his books. They are available. I don't recommend that you follow his tax advice, but you can certainly read and understand where he was coming from and why he fought so hard for the principles that he believed in. We sell some of my dad's books. We don't have that many at schiffbooks.com. I still have some copies of The Federal Mafia, which is really, other than Fanny Hill, which was considered pornographic and was banned in the 19th century, the U.S. government actually banned my father's book. So The Federal Mafia is only one of 2 books ever banned in the United States. Now, they didn't ban it completely. They just banned my father from selling it. So
Right.
you could buy it from other people, not my father. And of course, he passed away a few years ago.
Yep.
And the circumstances were very bad. If you read an article I wrote about it, Death of a Patriot, it's on, you can see it on my channel, Schiff Radio, or just Google it. You can read the circumstances. They're very sad, but it really, shows you, government, how bad government can be. Even here in the United States, we have political prisoners that we treat people very inhumanely when the government doesn't like their politics. But he was a real great guy. He taught me a lot. I mean, if you read his book, The Biggest Con, we don't really have any of those. You can buy them used. It's a great book that came out in the early 1970s. I still have some copies of The Kingdom of Malts, which is a great little book on inflation, which is very apropos now. I'm going to run out. I'm surprised I haven't run out. We have probably a few hundred copies left, and then that'll be it. But they're great little books to have. I autograph those, by the way, the ones that we have. I usually autograph them so you can get my signature, not my dad's, unfortunately. But yeah, research on him. He was a great man. Really had a great mind, understood economics and law and the Constitution very, very well. Yeah.
Speaking of taxes, why did you decide to go to Puerto Rico?
To avoid taxes. I mean, although that's not my primary. I mean, look, I wanted to get out of New England for the winters. I mean, I wanted to be a snowbird for a long time. I like Connecticut in the springtime. In the summer, I really like it. In the fall, but I don't like the winters at all. And of course, the winter stretches into the spring and the fall. So I was thinking about moving down to Florida. And splitting my time. And of course, you also reduce your taxes when you get out of Connecticut. Florida has no state income tax. But then I found out about Puerto Rico, where I can avoid the federal income tax as well. And so I checked that place out and really just love it. And I've been living there now full time for 3 years. I have 2 businesses down there. I have a lot of employees down there. I bought, some properties down there. And it's a great place to live. And the fact that I don't have to pay the federal income tax makes it a lot better, because I have a lot more money now to afford not only maintaining my places there, but maintaining my place in Connecticut and traveling back and forth. But it's amazing how much more money you have when you're not splitting everything with your silent partner, the U.S. government, that does none of the work but takes half of what you earn.
Right. Well, I kind of teed that one up for you because I'm a long-time listener, so I knew that. But I thought it was a good point to, you're a real, true entrepreneur. Let's move into one of your favorite topics, which would be the Federal Reserve and what's going on right now with these. I think we're going to head towards negative yielding bonds, and of course there's some places in the world that have gone negative. But who's buying this stuff?
Yeah, that's what Donald Trump said in his his signing ceremony for the bogus Phase 1 trade deal. He started talking about negative interest rates and how great it was and how Europeans were so lucky that they could be paid to borrow, and he wants that here in America. We want negative interest rates. But then he said, but I never understood who's dumb enough to buy all these bonds. I mean, I get borrowing and paying a negative rate, that's a good thing, but lending for a negative rate, you have to be an idiot to do that. So who's being this dumb?
Yeah.
And of course, the answer to Trump's rhetorical question is central banks. The central banks are being really dumb. But if the central banks are doing dumb things, that means they're screwing up the economy. There is going to be a price to be paid for bad monetary policy, and there's going to be a big price to be paid for negative rates. But, nominal rates are negative everywhere. I mean, every country now, the inflation rate is higher than the interest rate, even the official inflation rates. But, of course, the unofficial inflation rates are much higher than what the government admits. So everybody is getting a negative yield, which is a huge problem because nobody's going to save when you have negative real rates. And you have all kinds of crazy projects being funded that shouldn't be funded. You have a lot of businesses that shouldn't even exist that are being propped up by all this cheap money. And so the whole economy is distorted, and that means we're headed for a massive collapse when market forces ultimately try to repair the damage and reallocate resources to where they should have been.
I think, all of this, of course, would be good for gold.
Yes, and it is good for gold. Gold prices are rising.
Yep. I've done a lot of interviews this weekend, Peter, and I got to be honest with you. I love asking people, can anybody make a real case for staying in this extremely low interest rate environment for decades? Is it even possible?
Well,
people love to ask you timelines, which is a little like, how do you really? Well, it's going to happen on this date. It's a little. I don't.
Well, I mean, are you asking? Is it desirable to do it, or just can they just keep it going?
Yeah, can they? I mean, how do you do?
Well, they can't do it. They can't do it indefinitely. So the question is, when does it come to an end? When does the bubble, completely pop?
Right.
And I don't know, but I do know that the only reason to do it is political expedience, because you're simply delaying the day of reckoning. But I know that the longer you delay that day of reckoning, the worse it's going to be when you got to reckon with it.
Yep.
So from a practical perspective, from an economic perspective, the sooner the better, right? The sooner we can, swallow the bitter tasting medicine, the sooner we can start healing from, what we got. But none of the politicians want that. Wall Street doesn't want that. I mean, so everybody wants to keep the party going as long as possible. And the longer they keep it going, the more they're afraid to let it end, because they know it's that much worse. So it just, everybody kicks the can down the road as long as they can. But nobody knows when the music's going to stop.
Absolutely. I'm going to bring up a touchy subject, but I noticed there was some trolling going on with you and someone else yesterday. Bitcoin.
Well, I probably brought it on myself, because I admitted that something happened to my wallet, and so I could no longer access my Bitcoin.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened.
So some people said you didn't know how to use it. I don't know. I don't even have Bitcoin.
Well, apparently I didn't. I mean, I don't know. I mean, a guy named Eric Voorhees, who was active in Bitcoin, set up my wallet one day over dinner, and I never really used it that much. And then a bunch of people donated money to me because they just wanted to give me some Bitcoin, so I chose that wallet. It was the only one I had. So then I ended up with, I don't know, $2,500 worth of Bitcoin or whatever. But I went to check the wallet the other day, and I couldn't get in. My password didn't work, and people were saying, "Oh, you forgot your password." No, I didn't. I know the password, but for some reason, the password that used to work doesn't work anymore. But everyone says, well, you have to use your code sentence, whatever it is, your secret word, or your private key. I don't know, it's like a phrase, like a recovery phrase. And that's the first I ever heard of that. I never knew about that. And so apparently when Eric set it up, he forgot to tell me, or he didn't tell me, so I didn't know that you're supposed to have a longer password than your actual password or whatever. So apparently my Bitcoin are gone. I mean, maybe I'm working on potentially trying to get them back, but I've been told that I may never see those Bitcoin again. So I just thought I would just let everybody know, the status of the Bitcoin, because people had given them me based on a tweet. This guy, Anthony Pompliano, the thing, he mentioned, because there was all these rumors that I had Bitcoin, which was started, I think, by Jeffrey Tucker, because he mentioned that I had Bitcoin in a radio interview, and of course I had next to nothing, like $50 worth. I mean, I got from Eric. Right. And then I had a couple of other Bitcoin Cash, Ether that I got, somebody gave me. So it was nothing, less than $100 worth. But all of a sudden online, it was like I'm a secret hodler. I really own Bitcoin, but I'm just talking it down because it's bad for my gold business. But I really believe in it, so I'm a hypocrite. And so this was going on, and I tweeted, I said, hey, I got like $100 worth. What are you talking about? It's nothing. And then Pompliano was like, oh, what's your address? I'll give you another $100 worth. So I said, all right. So I gave him my address, and he never gave me the $100. He still owes me. I guess you don't technically owe me the money because it was free. There was no consideration for it. I don't know that I could enforce it. But Anthony didn't give me any money, but a bunch of other people did. They gave me a couple $1,000s worth of Bitcoin. So when I lost them, I just figured, well, I might as well tell everybody what happened to my Bitcoin, because they gave them to me and now they're gone. so but of course, it's fun. Over 5,000 people have already liked my tweet from yesterday that I lost my Bitcoin, which, is a little insulting. Why are people so happy about misfortune? I lost, but it was easy come, easy go. Yeah. I didn't, so, I mean, I don't think anyone's going to feel sorry for me.
Right. So, quick digression.
Yeah.
Who's going to win the Super Bowl?
Well, I'd like to see
Todd, where am I going?
The Chiefs win.
And
they haven't been to the Super Bowl in 50 years.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
So, and they won Super Bowl IV, and I think it was an upset. So I think they probably going to be the favorite. I don't know. San Francisco looked really, really strong yesterday against Green Bay. I have a soft spot for the Niners. I went to Berkeley, and so while I was there, living in California during the Joe Montana days, I used to root for the Niners. But I like, I think Mahomes is a great kid. And I like, and last, I'm a Patriots fan, so the Patriots aren't there. So I generally tend to root for the AFC when the Patriots are out. And the Patriots beat them last year. I was here in Vancouver for that AFC Championship game. It was a great game, and the Pats won. And then, so this year,
Right to Main Street.
this year is their chance. San Francisco's got a lot of Super Bowls under their belt. And Garoppolo, though, interesting. He was a backup for the Patriots for a few years under Brady.
What's going on with Brady? Is this guy going to re-sign? I can't.
Well, we'll see. He bought a house in Connecticut, which is now near my summer home because I don't live there anymore. But we'll see. He sold his house in Massachusetts and bought one in Greenwich.
Right on Main.
But I don't know. I mean, it'd be a shame to see him play with a team other than the Patriots.
It's kind of weird to me.
Right.
I was hoping he'd just end his career there. That's a great legacy, right?
It depends on how much this guy really, really enjoys the game because, we know he doesn't need the money.
Yeah.
And he's got a rich wife, too. She makes more money than he does.
That's unreal.
It's a good position to be in.
Yeah.
So, and she's not bad looking.
Where am I headed, Todd?
Left on Terminal, 2 blocks.
Left on Terminal. Oh, that's the street. Obviously, you follow the metals market. Do you follow anything outside of gold and silver?
In the metals? I mean, I look at palladium. I mean, my top performing stock is Sibane Stillwater that I have. I mean, I almost sold it for a tax loss. I actually still needed some. I don't pay any capital gains anymore, but I have a few. And so I was looking for tax loss at the end of 2018. And I looked at selling it, and then I ended up not selling it. I talked to Adrian Day, and he's like, well, it's really, really cheap. And I'm like, all right, I'll keep it. And I should have bought more. Instead I bought, different gold stocks, and I really kicked myself because it's been a huge winner for me this year. Now I have a much bigger position because it's up 5 or 6 fold. And I'm not down in it anymore. Now I have a gain. I don't have a tax loss anymore. But yeah, I mean, I look at some of these other metals, but ultimately, gold is the main metal that I'm looking at because gold is a monetary metal, and so I'm looking for signals about what's going on in the economy, the monetary market, not a lot of the supply and demand imbalances that may exist with other metals.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Yeah.
When you're looking to buy gold stocks, what are some of the things that are on your radar? That you got to check off?
Well, again, these days I, let my portfolio managers do most of the analysis. I mean, when it comes to gold stocks in particular, it's Adrian Day, and I spend a lot of time traveling, going to these conferences. I do the podcast. I try to manage some of the businesses, so I don't have, you can't do everything, right? So I don't have enough time.
Anymore.
Yeah, I mean, so I can buy the big blue chip stocks. I mean, anybody can, let me buy some Barrick, let me buy from Franco-Nevada, Agnico Eagle. I mean, yeah, anybody can buy those, but it doesn't take any research, you just buy them. But for the other ones, the juniors, and those type of stocks, you really got to know your stuff. And I don't have time, to do that. I'm doing other things, but I trust people that are doing it, who know that, who have, been in the business for a long time, and who know a lot more about mining. Adrian's probably forgotten more about mining stocks than I know. So.
It's up here on the right, by the way.
Okay, Mr. Schiff, if Donald Trump was to get voted back in, would that be good for the economy?
Well, I guess it's better than the alternative. But, I mean, it's not even, the economy isn't good now that Trump's president. It's a bubble. And so would re-electing Trump make it easier to sustain the bubble? Yes. But sustaining a bubble is not a good thing. I mean, popping a bubble is a good thing. Even though it's painful, the sooner they pop, the less painful it's going to be, because all bubbles pop, and the longer it takes, the worse it is when they do. But the problem with not re-electing Trump is electing Bernie Sanders or somebody like that. That is a very big problem for the U.S. economy. I mean, the bubble is the least of our concerns. I mean, if we actually go in the direction that Bernie wants to take us, and if Congress is willing to go along and the Supreme Court is willing to ignore the Constitution like they typically do, we're in a lot of trouble in the United States.
You don't want to live in Canada? Socialism?
Well, we're going to make Canada look good if we get Sanders. But no, I mean, look, I'd like to live in freedom. I'd love to live in a real free market capitalist economy, the one that the framers envisioned, the one that we had, in the 19th century and, maybe earlier in the 20th century, minus the slavery. I mean, I'm not, advocating that we go back to that. But if you look at America, in the post-Civil War era, up till maybe the beginning of the income tax and the Federal Reserve in 1913. I mean, that was the freest we've ever been as a society, and that was the most prosperous we've ever been. That was the greatest period of prosperity and economic growth for the masses, not just the rich, but for the middle class and for the poor. That was the heyday of America economic might and growth, and that was because we had limited government like the framers envisioned. We didn't have income taxes and Social Security taxes, and we didn't have, all these government rules and regulations, all these employment laws or minimum wage laws. We had freedom, and when you have freedom, you have prosperity. When you have government, right, and you lose freedom, then you lose prosperity. But unfortunately, American young people, and young people all over the world, but in America, they're educated, or not really educated, brainwashed through a government school system, which is really socialism in action. We would be much better off with free market education, where private entrepreneurs, competed with one another to deliver excellent, low-quality education instead of government monopolies, which deliver overpriced, lousy education, in quotes, to their captive audience. But when you have a bunch of socialist teachers teaching kids, they teach them socialism, and they grow up and they start voting at 18, and of course they vote for idiots like Sanders because they buy this, because they don't have enough experience to know better. They're young, and they're voting with their hearts and not their intellect, not their mind. I mean, I don't know what Sanders' excuse is for being as old as he is and having never learned anything. Maybe because he never actually had a real job. He doesn't understand how the economy works. So he's like a little kid who still believes in Santa Claus. But it's very upsetting to me that socialism has taken such a strong stranglehold in the United States, and that capitalism is held in such low regard by people who have benefited from what's left of American capitalism. But, the problem is the U.S. government, the Federal Reserve, especially, following the financial crisis, really gave capitalism a bad name by pretending that what they were doing had something to do with capitalism when it had nothing to do with capitalism. It was all about socialism and central banking and central planning. And so because of all these bailouts and all this, a lot of people now have a bad idea of what capitalism is. And so when they say capitalism is not working, it's because we don't have capitalism. What's not working is crony capitalism, right? It's corporatism, it's fascism. That's what we have, and that's what's not working. What would work is real free market capitalism, but the socialists don't get that. They want socialism, even though that's never worked. Every time it's been tried, it's been an abysmal failure. Yet, of course, they don't teach that in schools. They don't teach any real history in schools. They teach a revisionist version of it.
Would that be one of your biggest concerns when you think about the youth? You have kids, right?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, 3.
So what would be what would you be concerned about with that generation?
Well, I mean, my kids, so far my older one seems to have his head on straight when it comes to economics and politics. I've had a good influence on him, and so has my father. He's read my father's books. My younger ones, they're 3 and 6, so we'll see what happens. I hope I do a good job with them, like I did with my 17-year-old. But then you could take my niece. I have an 18-year-old niece who just started college, and she's a complete socialist. I mean, she's she supports Elizabeth Warren, she's a big AOC fan. She's my own niece.
Right.
So I mean, if my own niece could be a socialist, I mean, what's that say about everybody else?
That's right.
I mean, it's very alluring when you're young. I mean, I don't blame young people, in a way. I mean, there used to be a saying, if you're not, socialist or liberal, whatever, by the time you're 21, you don't have a heart. But if you're not a conservative, by the time you're 28, you don't have a head. So you're expected to grow up and mature and then abandon those ideas that you have when you're a kid. Again, like, Bernie Sanders, he's just a child, and so is anybody that believes the nonsense that he believes. I don't doubt his sincerity. He seems to be one of the only guys who is sincere.
Yeah.
I mean, he's not pretending to believe this nonsense. He does believe this nonsense.
Yeah.
Which may make him even more dangerous than the politicians who just lie to get votes.
Yeah, because he comes across organically.
Yeah.
Left Highway 1A.
Thanks, Todd.
I'd rather have somebody who doesn't believe in socialism, but just spouts it because he thinks he's going to get votes. But then once he's elected, he acts more responsibly. But Sanders is like he's on a mission. He goes, this is what I'm going to do. I got to transform America.
Is there any way to get some financial IQ into the educational system?
Get the government out of it.
Yeah.
Let's have free market. Everything that we get that's good, right? That works well, that we're satisfied with, where every year the quality seems to improve, and in some cases the cost comes down, right? Think about consumer electronics, right? Things like that, or automobiles, or whatever it is, televisions and all that stuff. The government doesn't have any role in that. The government, there's no department doing that. The government is not making television sets for the poor people so that they can have. No, everybody gets it from the free market. Yeah, the rich get nicer ones than the poor, but the poor got pretty good consumer electronics. So if we got education from the free market, if we got health care from the free market, it'd be better and be cheaper. So, whenever you want, high quality and low cost, you need to look to a free market with competition and a profit motive. But if you have government supply you with the things that you need, you're going to get really low quality, you're going to get scarcity, you're going to get rationing, and you're going to get very high prices. And you're going to get lots of corruption and lots of problems, and that's what you have in education and healthcare. The two areas of the economy that the government is most involved, those are the ones that are most screwed up. But instead of demanding that government get out so that we can improve those areas, the solution is always we need even more government, which just makes it worse.
Yeah, and what's scary is I always talk about this is I'm from Toronto, and the Toronto Raptors won the big world championship for basketball and all that, and like 3 million people didn't go to work, and they celebrated, and it was a great time, right? But when all these scandals come out about our own government here, nobody stops going to work. Nobody cares, eh, Peter?
Yeah, well, the real scandal of government, though, isn't a lot of this small stuff. It's the fact that they're destroying our economies. They're destroying our prosperity with all of their subsidies and taxes and rules and regulation. And they pretend that they're trying to help us. Look what's going on in California, where they passed these laws, against the gig economy, against self-employed people, to try to make it harder for people to be independent contractors and force companies to employ people. But all the protests are from the independent contractors who are so upset that they're losing their opportunity to make money, that they're losing their livelihood, that they're being put out of the job market. So the government's like, hey, we're going to help you with these laws. And then the people who they're supposedly helping don't want the laws. The laws are hurting them. So the government is hurting the very people that it's claiming it's helping by interfering in their rights to contract and their rights to pursue opportunities that they want to avail themselves of. Yeah.
What would you say in your career so far you're most proud of?
Oh no, that's a tough question. I'd have to think about that for a while, and we're almost at my hotel, so I don't know if I could answer that one.
Yeah. Okay, we'll bypass that one.
I think I've maintained my integrity throughout. I mean, I've always tried to do what I thought was right for the clients. It wasn't always right in the benefit of hindsight, but I've always done what I thought was right at the time.
Well, I just one thing that I left here. One thing that I love is your passion for educating people. And you look at mainstream media, which always is trying to block out your narrative and what you're talking about. But social media, they can't stop you there, or maybe they can.
And a lot of people too. They accuse me of having a certain perspective because that's what I'm selling. Like, well, I have a gold company, so but I'm selling the things or recommending the things that I believe in. And so that's why I have that company. It's because I believe that we're headed for a monetary crisis. That's why I have the gold company. Yeah. It's not like I just have this gold company and so now I have to find reasons for people to buy it. It's because I thought people should buy gold that I started a gold company. Yeah, no. So people don't really know where the cart is and where the horse is, why I'm doing this. I mean, I am a financial advisor. I'm in an investment business. I could be telling people to just buy U.S. stocks and, ride the bull, right? Or just, I could do that. Just, I can make money doing that. So it's not like when I'm telling people you need to invest outside the United States, it's not just because, hey, that's my business, investing money outside the United States. No, my business is investing money. Mm-hmm. If I thought the U.S. was a better opportunity, that's what I'd be recommending. Now, the U.S. has been lucrative for these past 5-10 years, but all because it's a bubble. It's not because it's real, and I think the whole thing is going to end in disaster.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm trying to do, is keep people level-headed, get them to understand the big picture and the end game, and to stay on a course that I know in the long run is the right thing to do, even if it doesn't always look that way in the short run, because that's generally how it does. During a bubble, it doesn't look like you've made a mistake. It only looks like a mistake once the bubble is popped.
Yeah.
So in the short run, all the people who are making mistakes think they're geniuses.
Yep.
They're going to find out just how dumb they were. And people who are following my advices, who people think, oh, you guys are fools, you're missing out. We're going to be looking like geniuses in the end, right? When everything goes the way I've been saying.
Do you think you'll see the helicopter money?
God, I hope not. I mean, literally, they're not going to drop it from helicopters. But yeah, I mean, especially if we have a Bernie Sanders and they want to have all this free stuff, they're not going to be able to come close to paying for it with taxes on the rich. So the money's going to come from the equivalent of helicopters. QE for the people. Just going to print up a bunch of money so that people can spend.
Yeah.
But when government creates money, they don't really create purchasing power. They just mean prices go up. There's no real wealth created when you just create money. You just create paper. You create claims to the stock of wealth that exists. And in fact, their policies are going to be diminishing real wealth as they're increasing the claims on that diminishing stock. So prices really start to skyrocket, and standard of living implodes, and that's where we're headed.
In the 1980s, we had I think we got a protest here, Peter.
Oh.
That is definitely a protest.
I can't even understand it, though. What does the sign say?
It's pretty crazy.
Just honk. We'll pretend we support them.
In the 80s...
maybe it's like, it's not, RCMP off? Or off? Wet Sweeten?
Maybe we should interview them.
I mean, is this even English?
Next light, right.
I mean, they're
we're going left here.
I don't know. I saw the hotel a while ago. Now, are you just taking a long way so we can keep on talking?
That's a different Fairmont.
It is?
Yeah.
Oh.
There's 3 here.
Oh, we're at the waterfront.
Yeah, no, we're going to the lake, Peter. We're not trying to hijack you, but we do love your time, and this is kind of funny.
But we don't even know what's
going on here.
What they're protesting, or maybe they're just supporting something. Well, what are they saying?
I don't know. Let's show the people here.
What do they want? They want something now. But, I mean, does anybody have any idea what this sign is about?
I don't.
So what are they, what purpose are they serving if nobody even knows what they're doing or what they're advocating?
We go left here, Todd?
Yeah.
All right, that's done.
Well, it can't be that bad, though, because there's not that many people protesting it.
I was going to ask, do you think that we will see interest rates in the teens, above 10%?
Eventually. Eventually. Yeah. I mean, it has to happen. I mean, they're going to do their best to stop it. But, even if the official rates are lower, right, the rates that people have to pay are going to be up there. Because let's say the federal central banks are buying up all the sovereign debt to keep interest rates. If you personally want to go borrow some money, they're going to buy that debt. So if inflation is 10%, no one's going to lend you money for 3 or 4%.
Yeah.
So in the real world, the interest rates are going to reflect how high inflation actually is. I mean, they can artificially keep rates low, but eventually, of course, it doesn't matter, because if the currency collapses, then nothing else matters. It doesn't matter. I mean, right now, the central banks can get away with it because they print money to buy bonds to prevent bond prices from crashing and rates from going up. But once the dollar crashes, then the bonds have no value anyway, so the party is over.
Well,
here's the Fairmont.
This party is over now.
Yeah, the car ride.
Yeah.
My conference isn't over. I'm on the last panel, I guess, or closing panel at 4.
You're going to close the show down?
All right. Yeah.
We're turning into Peter's hotel, the Fairmont, and we're going to have to let him go. But we really do appreciate your time.
Sure.
And I've been a long-time listener. Actually, you didn't even know this, but you're one of my mentors.
Oh, okay, good. Glad I could have a positive effect.
Oh, it's amazing.
All right.
Thanks, Peter.
All right. Again, Schiff Radio. If anybody else wants to listen.
Where can everybody find you?
Schiff Radio is the website for the podcast, or I also put all the podcasts on my YouTube channel, so you guys can go there. My gold company I mentioned, Schiff Gold. My broker-dealer is Euro Pacific Capital, Europac.com. And in Puerto Rico, it's EuroPacificFunds.com. As I said, we'll be in Canada shortly. Right now, we're taking clients almost every place else but Canada. So yeah, if you have some money to invest, if you got a portfolio, check out our website. Think about sending some money over for me to manage. Get it into some international stocks, into gold stocks, things like that. Get out of the U.S. dollar, get out of fiat currencies in general, and have real assets and hunker down, and not only brace yourself to preserve your wealth during this crisis, but actually increase your wealth, because there's a lot of opportunity, there's a lot of mispriced assets right now, because most people don't understand where we're headed, and if you do and you can get there first, you'll make a lot of money, I think.